Hi guys, today we are going to be on module 4 and we're going to be looking at leadership. This is one of my absolutely favorite lectures and discussions because so many of you can contribute to this because you've seen pictures of great leadership before, probably in your own lives you've probably experienced it, as well as you've seen some expressions of poor leadership. And really the leader, the manager, if you become a project manager one of these days in whichever field you land in, whether it is a health field or some other field, you will probably continue to see great examples of good leadership or poor leadership. So as you are developing your own leadership style, and we're going to get into different types of leaders, you are really going to begin to see the characteristics, the behaviors, the traits, and the situations in which people lead. All of that contributes to how a leader is built. And so I want you to think about your approach, your style, your personality, because that all contributes to leadership and some of the things that you can develop to grow your leadership abilities is very important. The very first rule, one of the things I always say in class is the first rule of leadership is know thyself. This is something that I want you to think about as we're going through this lecture here, because knowing yourself is so critical to good leadership. You can see, as we've talked about previously, developing, strategizing, and designing, as well as leading, are the core activities of project managers. So I want you to also think about, in addition to thinking through that why know thyself is so critical to leadership, I also want you to brainstorm about what good leadership looks like. And you can think about that as we're going through this lecture. So you can see different types of leadership here. Looking at the basic definition of leadership is all about influencing others to understand and agree about what needs to be done to achieve the desired results. Leading is all about influencing others. And again, there are many things that come to mind when I think of leading and influencing. With great power comes great responsibility. It's similar with leadership. Influencing, great responsibility comes with influencing others. So you're going to see here two types of leading. And one is not necessarily poor leadership versus good leadership, but there is a difference, and I want you to understand that difference. Transactional leadership, it's really both sides, both manager and employee, are getting something out of the interaction. So when you think about that, right, your manager gives you an assignment, he or she gives you job responsibilities, you complete those, you get a paycheck, right? Both sides are getting something here. He or she is just overseeing the transaction. And then with transformational leadership, it really goes beyond that. It is all about creating a vision for an entire program or process, an entire project, especially if you are looking at a large organization or a troubled organization or a troubled program. The leader, in that sense, a transformational leader, sees the big picture. They see the vision of what this could potentially be, and they get everyone on board to accomplish that vision. And again, that's very specific to the situation and the leader and their style, as well as their ability to have buy-in from multiple parties, multiple employees. Very, very important. So I do want you to understand the distinction between those two. You can also see interpersonal power. This is something that managers have simply because they are managers. Interpersonal power is a bit of, it's being able to exert influence over others. That's something, think in terms of the ability to reward, the ability to punish, the physical environment, their work environment, the objectives, the organizational design. All of this falls under the interpersonal power of a manager. And you can also see it is expressed in a variety of ways. It's control over information, it's expert power, charismatic power, or referent power. So all of those types of power are ways that interpersonal power can be expressed. And this is one of the things that's very interesting here is someone can be an expert in a subject matter and they can still be a very poor leader. I had an expert manager. She was an expert in a particular field. And this was when I was in academic counseling at the University of Phoenix. I worked there for about 3.5 years. She was an expert in the actual system and the approach with academic advising. She knew the system. She knew all the policies. She was an expert in all of the ins and outs of academic advising at the University of Phoenix. However, she was not a transparent leader. She did not necessarily drive everything forward other than her knowledge, her depth of knowledge. So again, you want to think through those types of things. Just because you are an expert in one area does not make you an expert leader. So again, it's that combination of qualities and behaviors, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. And thinking of charisma, this is one I always talk about in class, is you want to think about a charismatic person. Thinking through, one of the people that always comes to mind here is Tony Stark from Iron Man, and he has that charisma, right? He makes people feel special. He makes them feel valuable as soon as he meets them, and then he also is always influencing others and driving the agenda forward. So if you like superheroes or the Avengers and all that good stuff, then that may be one that resonates with you. All right, so we can't talk about leadership without talking about motivation. For managers, motivation is absolutely essential because it is the way that you get people to follow you. It's the way that you influence others. We're going to look at some of the things that motivation is driven by: unsatisfied or unmet needs. And many times motivation behaviors result in someone trying to satisfy those unmet needs. So you're going to be able to see, this is just a little diagram depiction, but I want you to look at motivation as a basis for leading. Again, what a manager looks at in terms of participants making a program successful, there are some ground rules, right? Employees will tend to work regularly, punctually, predictably, right? They're not going to just come in whenever they feel like it. They're going to perform their direct or supportive work. They're going to basically contribute quality work as well. Behaviors like going above and beyond, all of those are looking at a very exemplary employee. But how do you get someone to go above and beyond? That is something that we're going to look at. And there are several different types of theories around motivation. There are content and process motivation theories. And we're going to kind of look at those distinctions. I'm going to let you study those theories a little bit more in depth on your own, but I'm going to highlight a few things. So in our content perspective motivation theories, we're looking at what motivates, what initiates, sustains, and terminates behaviors. And you can see here the four key basically theories around motivation. And you've probably all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is one of those foundational works in motivation, where you're looking at physiological needs, safety and security needs, social activity, ego, and then self-actualization. So when you think of physiological needs, you're looking at everyone needs money to survive and to make a life for themselves here in the U.S., right? We need a salary in order to pay for our bills, pay for where we live, the food we eat. Then you look at the next level of needs in terms of safety and security. An example of this would be a health plan, followed by social activity, right? Those relationships, the connections at work, followed by title. What is your title at work? And then finally, in that self-actualization, this is not just a title with a salary and all of your other needs are met. Self-actualization is you feel very rewarded and challenged, as well as challenged by your work. So looking at those in terms of what actually motivates someone to move from one level to the next. And Maslow really focused on how you had to move from one to the absolute next. Other theories believed that you can cycle in between categories of needs. Alderfer's ERG theory, existence, relatedness, and growth, they're very similar to Maslow's discussions. Existence, right? We need food, we need clothing, we need shelter, all of those things in terms of existence. and then relatedness, those personal relationships, the connections, the social aspect of needs, and then of course growth in terms of growth and your ability to climb the corporate ladder, or looking at different career paths for you and what looks like growth for you. So again, he talked about different needs within this theory. So those are the two I'm going to highlight here. I'm going to let you study the other ones on your own, but I do want you to read page 30, The Case of Jennifer Smith, looking at that. So that will give you a good kind of perspective on that theory. Hertzberg's two-factor theory, as well as McClelland's learned needs theory. So those all fall under content theories. So looking through those and then coming to